My name is Jaidyn. I'm one of the teachers at Vincent Music, and today I'm just doing a bit of a guitar lesson. It's mainly just a bit of a revision in terms of some of the chords that we've been doing, but also just some useful practice tips in terms of how to get some of them, just some of the chords going, really. So, for context, I'm playing on an acoustic guitar, but some of you who are learning the guitar might be learning on a steel string, and or otherwise playing on a nylon string, or otherwise an electric guitar. And how we learn, what type of guitar we learn does actually matter, because we're using different kinds of quality strings. For instance, I'm playing a nylon string guitar, and that's going to feel vastly different than when you're playing an actual steel string or an electric guitar. Because when you're playing a steel string, you're going to deal with a much heavier gauge. And a heavier kind of thickness there. So, for instance, it's good to start, I always recommend starting on a nylon string, and preferably something which is kind of smaller to your size. For instance, if you're a beginner learner, I'd recommend starting on a smaller size, but also depends on how old you are. If you're a beginner learner and you're very young, I'd recommend starting on a quarter size or a half size guitar with nylon strings, and eventually then progressing up to a steel string, because with a steel string you have a significantly different sound. If you want to do something like heavy metal or otherwise even leaning into jazz, you can use a nylon string or otherwise an electric guitar. Something along the lines. I'm not a trained jazz guitarist by any stretch of the word, but typically you use a different type of nylon string guitar, or otherwise hollow body electric guitar, for instance. But anyway, in terms of the active topic for the lesson, it's just revision on some of the chords that you'll be going for. So, for instance, the chords that I'm going to be going through are just some of your basics, such as D major, D minor, C major, G major, C major, G major, A minor, and A major. Someone having a good time? Anyway, pardon me. So, I'll start with our kind of first chord, which I forgot to even touch on just then, our E minor. So, just revising our string format of it, we have our E, G, B, D, B, A. So highest to lowest, E, B, D, G, D, B, A. So with every big goon deserves fries always? Something along the lines. You can use whatever acronym that you might like. I just made that one up on the spot. So, with our first chord, we have our E minor, which is second fret with fingers 3 and 4. No, sorry, I should clarify. Fingers 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know that they're not really your first to fourth, but because our thumb is constantly in use behind here, that doesn't count. So we have our index, middle, ring, and pinky. So fingers 2 and 3 are going to be on the second fret of the B, of the A and the D strings. Then we have E minor. If we want to now make that a major, we just simply take our first finger and put that on the G string, and we make that E major. So our note names here for the E minor are E, B, E, G, B, E. But for our E major, we have our E, B, E, G sharp, B, and E. Yeah. So, in terms of practicing these ones, particularly if we're unfamiliar with them, they are the simplest chords, but one thing that you might notice, particularly when we're beginning, is that our fingers will start to tire out, or they start to feel really, really kind of pressurized. Now, I'm just going to move my fingers closer to the camera that you see, But you may or may not see these because of the camera quality, but you see the little ridges that are here in my hands? These are what are called calluses. Now, calluses are a very important thing to learn in the guitar because simply without the calluses, we can't really play the guitar. When we're beginning, particularly for the beginning students, I would recommend starting on a nylon first, but if you happen to have a steel string, then we're going to have to go with that. But simply put, steel string guitars are harder to play because you're literally putting your hands against steel. And you're having to learn how to play and play delicate chords with that. That's why I always recommend starting with a nylon string first. But, back to chords. With our G major chord, it's fingers 2 and 3 on the 3rd fret of both these strings actually. And traditionally, even though it's not my personal favourite, putting the 2nd finger on the A string, 2nd fret. So 3rd fret for the 2nd and 3rd fingers, and 1st finger, I got that wrong just before, so 1st finger on the 2nd fret A string, and then fingers 2 and 3 on the E strings, G chord. Now, we're going back to our E chords a little bit. Let's go to our E major. What we can do is that we can shuffle them down just one set of frets. So going technically a bit higher. So moving everything down to the 1st finger, B string. 2nd fingers on the D and the G string, 2nd fret. A minor. If we want to make that a major chord, we actually have to shift chord fingers entirely, pardon me. So it's fingers 1, 2, 3 on the 2nd frets of the D, G, and B strings. A major. So you see the shifting that's happening? It does take a little bit of time to get your hand around those particular changes, so practicing slowly. Sometimes even going one finger at a time. So in the case of A minor, A major, it's going from finger 1 to finger 4 on the same fret. It is a bit of a head wrap arounder, but it is something that is one of the middle essentials. So, with other chords, we have our D major, fingers 1 and 2 on the 2nd frets of the G and E strings, the high E, and then we have our 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. So we have our 1st and 2nd on the 1st and 2nd fingers on the 2nd frets of the G and the E string, and then our 3rd finger of the B string. We have our C major chord. So this one is actually, it's a tricky one in terms of the beginning stretches, and particularly when we're learning about that as well as some of our calluses, it can be quite a bit tricky at first. But one way I like to think of it is this: we're going from A minor, right? But all that we need to do is just change one finger to another. So one finger to another place. Because 2 of the fingers that we actually have here, our 1st and our 3rd fingers, 1st and our 2nd fingers, pardon me, they're actually in the same spot. Pardon me. All that we're doing is just changing our 4th. Sometimes even thinking of kind of like this little melody here. And to note, I'm not using a pick. It's not my typical playing style. I'm just using my fingers here, but use a pick or otherwise either this finger or this finger if we're not feeling too comfortable with using a pick just yet. Pardon me. So A minor. That's the way I would kind of learn this particular chord because it's a bit of a stretch. So, just to briefly kind of revise everything, we have E minor, E major, A minor, A major, D major, and then we have our G major, and then C major. So that should be all for today. So, in reference with how we actually practice these chords, practice them slowly, dig in with your fingers, and if we are feeling a bit of pain from the calluses, then stop. Okay? Guitar playing should never be painful. I mean, there has to unfortunately be the pain of the calluses, but if it's getting too much to actually play, then we need to stop. And just, either give ourselves a rest for the day, or otherwise just give it a few minutes. But there's no point trying to play on already pressured fingers. Okay? Anyway, I hope you're having a good one, and I hope you've enjoyed and taken something from this. Take care.